Sparks, and today we're going to be talking about when clarity leads, burnout recedes. I'll say that again. When clarity leads, burnout recedes. You see, your burnout isn't from doing too much. More often than not, I present for your consideration is from not knowing why you're doing it in the first place. Today, we're going to be talking about going from chaos to clarity, how to fight back that chaos and get back your clarity. We're going to be talking about why once-in-a-lifetime historical events create burnout, why unclear goals drain you faster than any deadline will, some healthy moves you can make to clear your fog, and how to get back to some vision and purpose. We're going to be talking about this and more on the Grant Sparks Show, episode 348, Chaos and Clarity and Beating Back Burnout. Let's talk about it. I made a post this last week, and when I did that post, it actually got a little bit of traction. And someone specifically asked, Grant, I like your train of thought here. I need to hear more about this. And I pondered this throughout the week and throughout the weekend, and it struck me. You know, I talk to a lot of business owners, and right now we're having what I call a silent recession. They're not calling it a recession. There's lots of rumor about a recession, but how I'm seeing it is a lot of business owners are maxing out their credit cards. They're closing their unnecessary subscriptions. They're burnt out. And when you say what's going on, they kind of hem and haw. But as you pry and as you have an intimate conversation, people are burnt out. And so when I did this post, when I put out this post that said, you know, hey, I think burnout's coming from lack of clarity more than doing too much. They were like, hey, give me more. And so as I thought about this, I realized there's a lot of people that are doing what we call bed rotting. There's a lot of people working less hours than they used to. Now, there's some other people that are working 2 and 3 jobs. And so I don't want to diminish the people that are working hard. But a lot of the people I talk to, a lot of the business owners, they're not necessarily working more, but they are definitely more burnt out. They're deciding if they got another rally in them to rally their business. They're deciding if they need to change business entirely. Is that you? Have you been thinking, man, I just need to get out of this thing? Or, hey, how do I sell? Or how do I just make this easier? Or can we cut back? I know I've had these thoughts. Have you? And as I've had these thoughts, I realize, man, what is going on? So then you ask people a parallel question, and I do this all the time. I challenge you, go a week and ask people this question. It is eye-opening, and it's this. And if you've watched this show for any length of time, you know I do this. I ask people, what's your dream? What are your goals? And I cannot tell you the trend. I've mentioned this on many occasions. The trend now, when you ask people their goals, it is usually to get through this shift. It's usually to make my paycheck this week. It's usually to take care of my kids, which is all good stuff and noble stuff. But few people are dreaming. Few people have clarity of purpose. Yes, raising your kids has a strong purpose. I agree. Yes, paying your bills and getting through your paycheck has a strong purpose. But what I present for your consideration is these visions, these purposes are not nearly strong enough to carry you from feeling burnt out into feeling energized by the work. You could have 2 people doing the same miserable job, and it energizes one versus destroys the other. And maybe it's temperament. Maybe there's a lot of circumstances. But in this hypothetical, I present for your consideration that it's actually clarity of purpose. I tell you, there was a point where I was building my business in the early days. And my partner, Marissa, at the time was working. I was working, but it still wasn't enough. And we were still building the company. So I would wake up in the morning at about 4 a.m. and go to the day labor places where they would jump in the back of a truck and do day labor. I would do that. Why? Because I did it in my early 20s when I needed to. I wasn't afraid of that. And of course, it was nerve-wracking to hit your ego to show up. And I wouldn't get picked. The Latinos would get picked, and other people who looked more strapping than me would get picked. But I would go out there and do that because I had a sense of purpose. It could have hit me, and it did hit my ego. It was very challenging. But what stuck with me is why I was doing it, to build a business that served people, that ignited lives of explosive significance. That's what keeps me going. So today we're going to be covering this and more on how to get your clarity back. The steps I take actually, it's a 2-part thing. Number 1, how to calm yourself, how to cut through the chaos. And number 2, how to get back to vision and clarity. That's what we got for you today. But before anything, you know what time it is. Morning cup of gratitude. Listen, if you cannot take a second and express gratitude, I'm telling you, I know you're overwhelmed. I know you're so overwhelmed. So take this minute. This is an opportunity to loosen up your dreamer, your ability to see opportunity and see things you're grateful for this morning. So in the comments, tell me what you're grateful for, and I will start. Hey, I'm grateful for all the fighters every day who are showing up to the battlefield and still waging war against mediocrity. Even cutting through the fog that's going on within people, even cutting through the overwhelm. I've got gratitude for that. I got gratitude, big time gratitude for my health and fitness routines, which anchor me no matter where on the planet I am, no matter what I'm focused on that day. I'm telling you, my health and fitness these habits. I cannot express enough to you how good these habits are. I'm grateful that I've had the ability to take care of the people I've taken care of. I am so grateful right now for some of the painful transitions I am going through right now. I'm grateful for them. They're shaping me. I am so excited about the next season. I saw this guy on TikTok recently. This is what I'm grateful for. And I want you to take this opportunity. If you're listening, I see you on Facebook. I see you on Instagram. I see you on Twitter. I see you on YouTube. Drop a comment on what you're grateful for. And I'll tell you this one quick one. I just saw TikTok and a guy said, hey, considering World War III and what we're going through, instead of talking about this, let's talk about what comes next. And he began to lay out in terms of historical terms, we're in an era right now that's pretty full of turmoil and chaos, and it's frustrating a lot of people. But on the back of this, usually after whatever changes, whatever hardships happen, there's then an era of reform. And when this guy was talking about this, about the world stage, about America, all this stuff, yes, I saw the parallels, but really I saw the parallels in my own life, that these painful turmoils, and I'm saying this to you watching right now, the painful turmoils you are going through. Yes, you need to go through that transition, but the next stage, it is a well-documented moment that in the next stage, you're going to flourish. You're going to come into fruition. So I am grateful for all of this and more. What are you grateful for? I still haven't seen your comments. Maybe the comments aren't coming through my streaming software, but please take a second, post, and if not on this stream, on your own socials, post what you are grateful for, because that is the first step. If you are feeling shut down, if you are feeling locked down, if you are feeling emotionally constipated, if you are not in touch with your bigger vision, your bigger purpose, the first thing you can do is express gratitude, articulate it. Try to access that feeling of gratitude. Last story on this, I was in India. And for those who don't know my story, I was kidnapped in India. And this happened over the period of one whole day. And I eventually got out of it. Oh, man, Nicole jumps in. Nicole says she's grateful to have a renewed evidence about fitness and the gym, a renewed sense, a renewed pursuit, a renewed passion, something or another. And Nicole says she has a renewed something about fitness and the gym. So Nicole, if you could tell us what that word actually is supposed to be, let us know. I was kidnapped in India and it was super scary and frustrating. And after I got out, I was kind of shell shocked. And I was on a ship. I was traveling the world by boat. Excitement. She says a newfound excitement about fitness in the gym. Me too. Let's kill it. And so after I was kidnapped, I went back to the boat and I got out of this situation. Ask me more details in some other time. And I got back on the boat. Now on the boat, I was so shell shocked. I didn't want to leave the boat for days. But how did I overcome it? I got out of the boat and I started talking to the locals and I started giving out. We were leaving that day and I started giving out all the cash I had left over, all of it, because I was feeling angry at this country that had put me through this weird thing that I was kidnapped. But instead of feeling bitter or angry, I wanted to feel grateful. I wanted to feel excited. I wanted to feel like I had made a connection. So I gave all the cash I had. I actually talked to people and got their story, and it shook off this specter, this weight that it was weighing over me. That's what it's like to express gratitude. So just like Nicole, find something to be grateful for and express it, please, for the love of all that's holy. Let's talk about one piece of research from Harvard Business Review. Let's talk about this. Harvard Business Review did a study, and they found out that burnout today is driven more by the emotional exhaustion, not physical, emotional exhaustion of misaligned values. Now, this research was kicked off that was largely relating to employees working for a business, and the personal values of the employee did not match the values of the business. I get that. We understand that. You work for the man, you work for a company. And for the longest time with Starbucks, when I managed a Starbucks when I was young, I actually had a great experience in the early days. Fantastic. But they started drifting from their purpose very quickly. They used to have this mission statement that said, we first serve our customers, then our employees, then our shareholders. It put it in like our neighborhoods. They were focused on neighborhoods at the time. And I missed this. And when they started drifting, I started feeling burnt out. This research was about employees who were working for a company with misaligned values. But this then was extrapolated to small business owners. And you've heard the quote, I've had the worst employer of my life, and it's me. Most small business owners are misaligned in what they're doing with their personal values, and it is accelerated. So even if employees are experiencing burnout and emotional exhaustion from misalignment with the employee to the corporation, small business owners who are doing a business that misalign with their core values are going to experience an exponentially larger misalignment because it's them doing it to themselves, and they know. Let me drop this link on. This is a powerful article. There's a good little podcast or an interview involved with it, and the research behind it is phenomenal. So I dropped the link in most places. It doesn't look like it's going to come through on Facebook for some reason, but if you're on Twitch or YouTube, you can see that link. I'll drop it again on Facebook later. But this is so crucial. If you have a project, a side hustle, a business. Now listen, I am a very sex positive person, and I have no problem with people on OnlyFans. We could deliberate it. We could argue about it. I don't care. But what we do find, and this has to be recognized, is if you go to something like OnlyFans or sex work or something that doesn't align with your values and you are against it, then you got to get out because your values are just going to explode. So I am in full belief, and I had this in the opposite way. I was working in the church for some time, for a long time, and it shaped me who I was. I worked as a missionary. I worked as a youth pastor. I worked as an associate pastor. I wrote theological books and all sorts of stuff. I was heavily involved. But towards the end of my time in the church, the way the church was growing to a nationalist kind of political movement, especially the churches I was in, I had a misalignment of values on how we treat people. And this was in 2011, 2012, 2013. And it got so bad. I got so bad. I was so depressed. I had such an amount of burnout. And it wasn't until I stepped away from the church entirely that I started getting my life back because my values no longer aligned with the way that the churches I was involved with were heading in terms of how they treated people, how they treated people from a sexist perspective or a race perspective. It was just not uplifting or empowering or aligned with my values. This piece of research that I dropped from Harvard Business Review, let's see if I can show it on the screen. There it is. If you didn't get it on Facebook, here it is. And again, I'm going to paste it everywhere later on Twitter and whatnot. This article was phenomenal for identifying this thing that I'm talking about. That burnout, if you are feeling cooked, it's an energetic response that the activities you are taking, you might be grinding, you might not be working that much. I know multimillionaires who are sitting on a beach and they're burnt out. How can that even be? I lived in the Dominican Republic and I was good for 2 years of income. We had 30 or 40 grand in the bank. And in the Dominican Republic, the way we were living, we could have lived there for another 18 or 24 months, but I was burnt out because the activity, even the inactivity, was not in alignment with my core values. Burnout is not about workload. Burnout is about workload mismatched with vision and purpose. So here, I'm going to take a pause right now. I'm going to ask you this question. And if you don't answer, you're not really actually trying to make these changes for yourself. Here's the question. I'm challenging you. I want you to ask this question. Give me your top goal. Then tell me why it matters. In the comments right now. I see you watching. Tell me right now, give me your top goal today or this week and tell me why it matters. Don't ask ChatGPT. You use your critical thinking skills and tell me, what is your top goal and why does it matter? And does that actually resonate with your intrinsic values? For example, I know a lot of parents in this age who are making sacrifices for their kids, and they will tell me, just making sure my kids are okay. I ask this in the gym locker room all the time. What's going on? What's your big goal this week? Just making sure my kids are okay. These are a bunch of men in the locker room. And I say, is that your real goal? And they look at me. What are you talking about? Of course it's my real goal. And I said, well, when your kids are good and everything is good and you got money in the bank, what's your goal then? A little selfishly, what's your goal? And they go, I have to get back to you on that. I don't know. God's honest truth, I haven't thought about that in a decade. And then I ask them, are you burnt out? Yeah, I'm tired, bro. All the men I talk to in the locker room, I have probably met, it's a rare occasion that a man that I'm talking to in the locker room is like, I got vision, I got purpose, let's go. What are you dealing with? Well, I got kids I got to take care of. I got 2 jobs I'm working. They're overloaded, but they're energized because they know their why. So take a quick second, put it in the comments. Tell me what your top goal is and why. Please dictate it, voice to text. This is your opportunity to vent. This is your opportunity to reconnect with something in your heart. Post it in the comments right now. If you're driving, dictate it. I don't care. And if you don't share it here, share it on your socials and tag me. Mainly because I want to know that you are affected by this idea, because I am. So here's the thing. Problem agitates solve. Let's talk about this. Number 1, most burnout doesn't start in your schedule. It starts in your soul. And I don't just mean your faith, because all people of all faiths experience all kinds of burnout. I'm talking about your soul, the person, the thing that feeds you. And I contend, for your consideration, vision feeds your soul. The food of the soul is vision and purpose. Your soul is here for a reason, and you know it. And you might not know what it is, but you can feel that. I was made for more. How many of you feel this? I was made for more. That's your soul. And it's scratching at a craving for vision. I'm just giving you the opportunity to share right here, right now in the comments, wherever you find me. Please comment. This is my purpose and vision, and this is why it matters to me, to the next generation, to humanity, to my neighbors. Why does it matter? You're not out of time. You're out of alignment. Hear that. Quote that. You're not out of time. You're out of alignment. Grinding hard for your goals that no longer resonate creates internal resistance. Now, I'm making a caveat here for this when I was writing this morning. This caveat is you might feel misaligned and burnt out, and it's not that like, shame on me, I need to get back to my vision. Maybe you need to clarify a new vision. That's the season I'm in. The season, I'm confessing to you, the season I'm in, I have to clarify a new vision. So it's okay if the old vision doesn't cut it, but some vision needs to happen for you to dig yourself out of that burnout hole. I keep telling my partner, man, I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. And it's like, well, I got to get so much work done. I got to bring so much revenue in. These are all true things. I got to travel to feed my soul. These are all true things. But the truth is I need to stop my butt, put on my meditation app, open up my journal and do a few things and catch up. If you've read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, bro, you know what I'm talking about. Listen to the audiobook, buy the book, read the book, slow read. The Body Keeps the Score. You're going to know what I'm saying. So if the problem is that most burnout doesn't start in your schedule, it starts in your soul. And the problem is that you're not out of time, you're out of alignment. I'll tell you one thing that makes it harder. The world's getting louder. The louder the world gets, the quieter your vision gets. Now, said that another way, the more you listen to the loudness of the world, the quieter your vision becomes inside of you. Burnout ensues. Until you mistake your exhaustion for identity, eventually exhaustion just becomes your identity. This is what I was sensing last week. I was just exhausted all the time, and it's becoming my identity, becoming a bum. I'm becoming exhausted. Do you want to hang out? No. Do you want to mess around? No. I'm burnt out. Now, mind you, I'm bearing a large load right now for myself and considering my own life, and I know that. But I got to get back to vision. Now, I can't rush it, but I got to focus on it. Getting back to vision. You can't force vision. You kind of have to discover it, but it comes from ample amount of quiet time. But the world's getting louder. Literally entering World War III. I'll call it the silent recession in the silent World War III. And I'm blaming myself. Do you blame yourself? I do. But listen, I'm not broken and you're not broken. We're misaligned. Our body, our brain is telling us loud and clear, you're not connected to soul. You're not connected to your vision. You're not connected to your purpose. Hear me on this. It's not only difficult because we are mistaking exhaustion for identity. We think it's the busyness of our schedule. And honestly, solving it could help by lightening our schedule because we have plenty of time to look at ourselves and face ourselves. But it's not just the workload. It's the misalignment. So what can you do? How do you solve that? Burnout isn't necessarily solved by stopping. It's solved by seeing. Hear me on this. Burnout is not solved by stopping. It's solved by seeing clearly again. Clarity isn't some vague vibe. It's built slowly through plenty of quiet time, one step on top of another. And I need this, and you need this. The antidote to burnout is intentional clarity. And here it is, physical clarity. Reset your body so your mind can function. I talked about this in last week's show about travel. Pattern interrupts. Going to a new gym, sleeping, giving yourself permission to sleep and recover. Traveling, pattern interrupts have to happen. We talked about this a little last week. This week, we're talking about the mental clarity. Mentally mapping to your true goals and honest reflection. And then pragmatically, how do you pragmatically return to clarity? We're talking about mental clarity and practical clarity today. We can talk more about spiritual clarity and physical clarity at another time. And we talked a little bit about pattern interrupts. This is what I've been doing with fitness for the last 2 years. I've been trying to get back to a sense of control and clarity in my fitness, clarity of who I am physically, physiologically, where's my body at? That's what meditation is about, is anchoring in your body. So let's talk about this. Part 1 and part 2. Part 1, a clarity reset. Listen, these 3 steps will not fix burnout. These 3 steps will pierce the fog so you can begin to get to clarity, because you have to pierce the fog. I have to pierce the fog. Number 1. And so these are health conscious. These are physiologically focused. This is why so much Eastern medicine focuses on an integration with the body. In America, we often believe spirituality is this 3rd dimension or 4th dimension. It's this phase that this existence that's something outside of my body, something other than me, something other than my body. In the West, that is our belief. Spirituality is something that I can't touch or feel. It's something else. In the East, in the Occidental ideologies, spirituality is infused with physical. And this is why they're so much healthier than we are. I believe this is why they're so much healthier than we are. And you can say, well, it's corporate and it's our food. All of that is an outcropping of the integration of spiritual with physical, I believe. It's a root cause. And you could easily call out the toxins in our food and our society and blah, 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 blah. Yes, you could point to all of that. To me, those are fruit of a root cause. And the root cause is we believe something is spiritual. Something spiritual is other than us. So that's why I put these 2 together. Number 1, a health-focused way to pierce the fog. Number 1, move with purpose. Movement cues clarity. Tony Robbins has often said physiology leads psychology, not the other way around. And the example is if someone is depressed, they're hunched over or they're laying in bed, bed rotting, and they believe that laying in bed is the fruit of depression. And though in an initial analysis, someone gets depressed, they just end up laying down or sitting down, and then they're just cooked for the day. That could be true. But the perpetuation of it is the act of laying in bed. When I'm in bed, I lay in bed because I'm depressed, and I'm depressed because I lay in bed, and I lay in bed, therefore I'm depressed. It turns into this loop. Movement cues and causes clarity. If you took a depressed person, took 10 depressed people, and they were all kind of had this hunch or were laying down or were laying in bed or were evasive, if you had them do power stances and shake people's hands and walk around the lake, 9 out of 10 would shake off their depression. Not all, but many, if not most. Movement with a purpose leads to purpose. Movement cues clarity. So here's what you can do. Do a 10 to 15 minute walk before any screen. Walk outside when you first wake up, if you can help it. Aside from turning off your alarm, do not look at your phone. Open the door, put your feet in grass. If you take your cup of coffee outside, look at the sky, go for a walk, drink some water, anchor into your body. You will change your life. This will help you pierce the fog. It'll start setting things right because you're sending a new message. It's a pattern interrupt. You're sending a new message. When you're scrolling, you're lulling yourself to sleep. So if you do this movement with a purpose first, stretch, walk in grass, get outside, refuse to look at the phone, avoid it actively. At first, I have no problem with social media, but it needs the context. You and your intentionality are the context. The second thing, nourish to think. Whole foods fuel your thinking. I know that the world is heavy, but you can at least control what you're putting in your mouth and in your belly because your gut is your second brain. There's more neurons in your gut than there is your brain. Think about that. And are we feeding it as many whole foods as possible? So here's an action. Eat at least one mindful, technology-free whole food meal a day. Even if it's for 10 minutes, get some yogurt, get some fruit, sit down, turn your phone face down or leave it out of the room and just sit and eat calmly and drink water. Taste it. There's a whole thing called eating meditation from the Vietnamese Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh. It's a tiny little book. He's passed now, but he has a whole book on meditative walking, meditative eating. So the first thing is move with a purpose. It starts to cut the fog. It starts to put you in your body and you start to feel a sense of purpose and agency. You don't have words for it yet, but you're feeling a sense of direction. The second thing, eat to think. Another moment of mindfulness and you're feeding your brain. The third thing, reset your signal. You've heard the difference between signal and noise. With ADHD people, we got a lot of noise in the brain, but what's the signal? Right now, my brain is chaotic and I'm just admitting it. It's all over the place. And I'm often looking like I'm like stuck or paralyzed and I have this analysis paralysis. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to filter out the signal from the noise in my brain. What's the signal? What's the message hidden between all the random thoughts I'm having? How do you reset your signal or rehear, tune in to the signal going on in your brain? When your brain is off, it signals a reboot. So therefore, meditation and mindfulness are critical. The action you can take is a 5-minute meditation twice a day. Before you start working, when you come back from lunch, 5 minutes. Literally, it's all it takes. And it begins to rewire your brain. Like there's so much research. I don't even need to bring the research up on the rewiring of the brain with meditation. Do this. And the final thing you can do, power down your screens 15 minutes before bed. God, Grant, I watch TV to fall asleep. I read a book, but it's on my Kindle or on my phone. There's other ways to do this. You could do the black and white screen, the night light screen. You can dim it. You can turn the audio off. There's a lot of things you can do. Ideally, you turn the screen off entirely. And journal before bed. And this is what you journal. You could journal a little bit about what happened that day, but journal what you want to happen tomorrow because your brain in your sleep begins working on that thing. Number 1, move with a purpose to get to purpose. Number 2, nourish to think. Number 3, reset the signal by 2 5-minute meditations in the day before you start working in the morning and before lunch. And then journaling before bed. It sounds insane, but if you're feeling overwhelmed, you need to do something different. So here, once you have done these things a few days, you'll begin to get through the fog. Same day even, you'll begin to get through the fog. Now, here's how this is the second part, and this is just 3 quick things on how I believe you can then get back to clarity and purpose and overcome overwhelm, overcome burnout. Number 1, when you do journal, begin journaling your why. Journaling your why. If you love motorcycles, why? Why does it matter? How are you going to make it about your others more than just yourself? Can my why just be that it brings me joy and pleasure? Yes, if that's what you mean. Now, if you tell me my doing this thing brings me escape, I'm not going to give you a pass. You cannot escape this life. This life is painful sometimes, and there's entropy sometimes, and that's just part of the human existence. But you have to journal your why. You have to tell me why this matters, transcendent of you. It's more than just about you. We are not these individual mammals running around. We are an integrative species, more like a coral reef or a bee colony or an ant colony. We have a role in the greater purpose. In fact, I just was looking up the etymology, the origins of the word freedom. And yes, it means free, but it only works in terms of freedom if it's part of a community. Etymologically, where the word comes from. We're a free citizen of a free state. This is powerful. Our very words to their oldest origins, even in words that were freedom from responsibility, freedom from the man, freedom from the script that society is giving us, still only works in the context of community. I can talk more about that in an entire other episode. Journal your why. Why does it matter to the people around you? Your mother, your brother, your sister, your niece, your nephew, your neighborhood, your employees. Why does it matter? Why am I going to sell today? Why am I going to focus on sales today in my companies? Because it matters. Amber has been a guiding light and an angel in my life. An anchor, and we don't even hang out. But as an employee, as a partner, as a friend, I owe it to her to make sure that she is enriched. The same with my partner, Nicole. The same with my partner, Marissa. The same with the people that have invested in my life. I owe it to them to grow and thrive. Journal why what you do matters, because it matters deeply to the people around you. And if you are out of touch with that, I'm sorry, but that's why you're journaling, to reconnect with why what you do, even in the mundane. Here's your action you can take. Write down, my top 3 goals today are X, Y, and Z. Because. Why are these my goals? Because it matters, and tell me why. You have to see this in ink. To be full of purpose, to reconnect with your vision, to overcome burnout. Why does it matter? The second thing is this. I call it dashboard for direction. Clarity thrives on metrics that mean something. So here's your prompt. What one daily, weekly indicator shows that you're moving with purpose? How many sales calls I make? How many sales I accomplish? How many clients I served that week? How many positive reviews we got because they were fulfilled and we met their needs? But it's not just like, how much money did we make? That's us. That's money coming to us. If you want clarity that exceeds and overcomes burnout, write something down. I think of Nicole's son, Kendrick, who shoots basketball. He does 300 hoops a day. Okay, what's your metric? How many times I got to the gym this week and took care of my health? How many full nights sleep I got? How many words I wrote in the books that matter? How many shows I did that spoke to people's souls? How much feedback I got that it actually helped anyone, so that I know I'm not just yelling in a little echo chamber to myself, so I know it's making an impact. What are the metrics that you can see, that you can feel that your purpose is something more than just a daily grind? If you're building a SaaS app, how many that you believe in, that matters, that has an impact? How many people are utilizing it daily? What's your impact? How much time you spent with your kids? I don't know what it is. What's your impact? What are you going to measure this week? The third thing is this: block clarity time this week. Now that you've pierced the fog through all these health practices, how are you blocking clarity? How are you blocking time for clarity? Vision doesn't just appear, it's scheduled. You sit down and you write and toy with vision. You write it down. You don't just ponder in your car. You don't just ponder at your desk. If you don't sit down and write and make it a task, it's not real. There's 2 stages of creation, one in the mind, but that is a hope. When you've written it down, it becomes a goal because it exists outside of you. If someone walked by your desk and saw that goal, they would affirm it back to you. It's real. But when you just have that goal in your brain and you're walking around with it in your brain and no one sees it, there's no feedback loop, there's no metric for it. It doesn't exist. So if you want to feel less burnout, more clarity and purpose, which is dispelling this fog of burnout, schedule clarity time. I present for your consideration about a half hour before work. Sit down, open up your journal or a Google Doc for your journal or a physical notepad. Write down what you're doing, what your vision is. Even if you wrote it yesterday, you rewrite it every day. You rewrite your goal every day. Why do I say I ignite lives of explosive significance? Because for years, and I mean years, I have stacks of these cards I could show you. I did a 5x8 card or a 3x5 card, and every single day I wrote the vision at the top. I ignite lives of explosive significance. I help 10,000 creatives and creators achieve their goals more than if they had never met me. I wrote it every single, it's burned in my heart. It's written on my bones in runes. I believe this thing. You have to block that time and write the same vision, the same goal. And if it's not the right goal, if your goal has changed because your life has changed, then that time is spent considering what your new goal is. Put it on Google Calendar. Let me see it on the calendar. Grant, half an hour before work, I spend about 10 or 15 minutes and I just write my vision. And what I used to do is I used to write the vision. And then in that vision, I would write the top 5 things I had to do that day to achieve that vision. And it wasn't necessarily my business responsibilities, though sometimes it was. Quite often, more often than not, it was just the things that actually aligned to the goal. And then I would get to my work when I got to my work. The 4th thing is this: outsmart cognitive debt. Number 4 is this: outsmart cognitive debt. What does that mean? There's a weird amount of research coming back, and it's really causing me pause. I am in a constant state of using AI. I'm using AI for this show right now. It automatically cuts all my clips. I'm using AI. It automatically captures my transcript. But I often outsource my critical thinking to ChatGPT. And there's tons of research on this. This is for another show or another episode or some other thing that we could do. But are you using ChatGPT to write everything? There's an immense amount of research that if you are using ChatGPT to write everything, they are seeing a massive amount of cognitive decline. People are not able to cite anything in the stuff that they've written in their papers when they've used ChatGPT. They're not able to even speak to the principle of the paper. This was a large Harvard study that studied tons of students. And there were students who used ChatGPT to co-author their papers. There were students that used it just for research, but wrote their own paper. And then there's students that did their own research and did their own paper and only used Google to do research. Later, when they were tested on their work, the third group knew their content inside and out. They had matured as students. They actually had elevated as a person who could contribute to the body of knowledge on this thing. It was knowledge to them. But people that had used ChatGPT, it's not knowledge to them. They're literally just a conduit. They're just passing along information. And if you strip them of ChatGPT, they wouldn't actually know anything about that topic. The same is true with your goals. You cannot just outsource your visioneering and your goal setting to ChatGPT. You can work with it. You can have it interpret your behaviors. You can have it interpret your hangups. But when you schedule that time to sit down and write your goals, you cannot outsource that. It's called cognitive debt, which means now you owe that cognition that to other outsourced material. You don't actually have that knowledge. In fact, you have a decline in your cognition, which is a huge statement of research. So number 1, journal your why. Number 2, have metrics that you follow, what I call dashboard your direction. Measure something that matters. If it's not measured, it's not managed. Make sure you're measuring something that matters. Number 3, block clarity time. 5 to 6 days a week. Put it on your calendar. Show it to me. Screenshot it. Let me hype you up because you're making massive moves. You'll get that reminder that says, hey, sit down and write your goals. You may or may not do it, but you'll have that reminder every single day, and you will be loads ahead of people who are not bothering with this. And number 4, quit outsourcing your cognition. You got to outsmart it, which means you got to sit down and do the work. Listen to me. Burnout is not lack of time, lack of energy. It's lack of clarity on why you're doing anything in the first place. This isn't about doing less. It's about directing. This isn't about doing less with your energy. It's about directing your energy. And it could be to the same exact things you're doing, but with a newfound purpose. When clarity leads, burnout recedes. Hear that for your ears. When clarity leads, burnout recedes. Why am I talking about any of this today? Man, the world needs leaders. The world needs optimists. The world needs people who are passionate. The world needs the artists. The world needs people moving with clarity. The world is so burnt out, it doesn't need another burnt out drone. It doesn't need a carbon copy of your older brother or of that one influencer you saw. It doesn't need another drone, another clone. It needs someone who has purpose. It needs someone who has clarity. It needs someone who's passionate about something. And though they're passionate, they're fulfilled in doing it themselves, and they can do it the rest of their life just because they love it, but also so that it contributes to someone else's life in a meaningful way. Don't go out and find what the world needs. Go out and find what makes you alive. Because what the world needs is people who are alive, and vision makes you alive. We will not overcome the tyrants of this world. We will not overcome the burnout, the pessimism, the nihilism of this world by giving in. But we can't also fight it directly. How optimists fight is by not playing the game of nihilism, of depression, of fear, of doubt. How optimists and artists and creatives and the passionate people that will save us from ourselves don't play the game. They go inside. They don't have external points of reference. What's going on with World War III? What's going on in the streets with ICE? What's going on in the Middle East? They go deep and say, who am I going to be? And this is how, part one, you pierce the fog. Part two, you clearly articulate stuff that matters to you, that burns you with passion. And then what happens is, number three, you begin to ignite lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a great day.